Hello everyone and welcome to today's virtual geography. Today's focus is on ecosystems, and so in today's video we're going to be looking at what an ecosystem is. We're going to be looking at biotic and abiotic components of an ecosystem. We're going to be looking at nutrient cycling and the roles of organisms within an ecosystem. So we've got quite a busy video ahead of us. So with that being said, let's get started. So, an ecosystem refers to the interrelationships between what we call the biotic and abiotic components of a particular area. The biotic components are the living parts of an ecosystem, so things like plants, animals, bacteria, fungi, that kind of thing. The abiotic components are the non-living parts of an ecosystem, so things like the climate, the soil, and the amount of water within that particular area. The abiotic components also play a role in determining the biotic components of a particular ecosystem. So, for example, the amount of water that you can find in an area will determine the amount of plants and the species of plants that are able to survive there. And as I've already mentioned, ecosystems revolve around this idea of interrelationships between the biotic and the abiotic components. And so if you change one, it's likely to lead to a change in the other and vice versa. So for example, bacteria, which is one of the biotic components of an ecosystem, will break down dead organic matter and return nutrients into the soil, which is an abiotic component. That in turn will then allow new plants to grow as they can absorb nutrients from the soil. So as you can see, the biotic components will impact the abiotic components, and then the abiotic components can then go on to impact the biotic components. The organisms of an ecosystem can also be classified, and it depends on where they source their energy from. So for example, this grass is a prime example of a producer. What we mean by that is that it's able to produce its own energy through photosynthesis, which means that it's able to create its own energy from the sun. And this rabbit is a key example of a consumer. What that means is that it has to consume other organisms to gather energy. So in this example, the rabbit, which is our consumer, has eaten the grass, which is a producer. Though some consumers, like this fox, will go on to eat other consumers. So the fox has eaten the rabbit. You know. And then finally we have decomposers, which will start to break down dead organic matter. So in the case, this fox is being broken down by mushrooms, and then the nutrients from that fox will then return into the soil, as is the role of a decomposer. They return nutrients back into the soil. So decomposers are actually really important aspects of an ecosystem. They play a key and vital role in what we call nutrient cycling, which is a key process that happens within ecosystems. So in step one, we have decomposers which break down dead organic matter and return their nutrients into the soil. Secondly, nutrients are then absorbed by plants from the soil. So nutrients get absorbed into the plants, so usually through the roots. Those nutrients are kept in the plant, and then sometimes, not necessarily though, a consumer will come along and eat the plant. So the last step in our nutrient cycle is that these plants and animals will then die. The dead organic matter will enter the soil, where decomposers will break them down, as is in step one. So it completes the cycle. So in conclusion, ecosystems are based on the interrelationships between the biotic and abiotic components of an area. Also, organisms within an ecosystem can be classified depending on where they get their energy from. And lastly, nutrient cycling is a key process that takes place within the ecosystems of the world. And so that brings us to the end of today's virtual geography. As always, there is a worksheet down in the description below, and it's time for you to pack up, like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out the TikTok page, link in the description below. And other than that, I'll see you in the next one. Adios. Today's focus is going to be on ecosystems. So, no, I don't know why I'm gesturing a lot, aren't I? My hands do move a lot when I talk. So, an ecosystem is... Nope. So, an ecosystem refers to the abiotic and... No. Whereas the abiotic components are that... No, my arm went out of frame then, because that is going to be out of frame. I need to make sure that my arm stays within the green screen. It's hard when you've got these lanky arms everywhere. Jesus, look, what are they called? The wacky arm inflatable tube men. For example, the amount of water that you can find in a particular ecosystem will determine the plants able to survive in that particular place. And so it determines the biotic. So, an ecosystem refers to the interrelationships between what we call the biotic and abiotic components of a particular area. I like that one. That second one was on the dot. The abiotic components of an ecosystem also help. No. So the last step in our nutrient cycle is that these plants and animals die and the dead organic matter enters the soil. The decomposers will carry on doing what they do and they'll decompose those and once again return nutrients back into the soil for step 2 to happen. Its cycle is right. It's a nutrient cycle. We get that. Decomposers add nutrients. Plants take the nutrients. Plants die. Lovely. Waffled. Why did I waffle? It was perfect and I waffled on and ruined it.